Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor for me. And this is the second time that I'm attending this great presentation. Last time it was in Paris. And so today I will bring you to the history of pandemics. I recently wrote a book and what made me do that was the fact that in med school, we don't learn much about the history of pathogens. But the history is there, the data is there. So with two of my colleagues, we decided to get into this journey, and I will share with you what we found. So this is the outline. We will go through the 2,000 years of pandemics. So I'm not going to get into more details about it. But first of all, just a little reminder on what is a pandemic? Well, a pandemic is considered an outbreak of a disease occurring in a wide geographic area, crossing national borders and affecting a high proportion of the population. Through human history, pandemics have caused more fatalities than even the most terrific wars. We have in mind, of course, the COVID pandemic, but it was not the first, and we now live in a world with several pandemics at the same time. You, as infectious disease physicians, you know that. So during the first millennium, there were two huge pandemics that the humanity faced, and both of them happened in this area. In Italy, they initiated here. So the Antonine Plague and the Justinian Plague. The Antonine Plague was caused by hemorrhagic smallpox, largely disseminated by Roman soldiers. And this illness killed in between about 75 million people and about 10% of the Roman Empire. And in 189, sorry, it's believed that in this city, about 2,000 people will die in a single day. So this city is plenty of not only beautiful art, but also it has been the witness of several pandemics. So now, about 500 years later, then we have seen the first case of another plague, the Justinian plague. It was disseminated by several factors. First of all, at the time, there were a lot of climate threats, social and biological variabilities, food availability, and particularly the rodent population and human migration. When we speak about human migration, it's not only for economical reasons. There is also the soldiers that carry out several infectious agents. Well, at the time, the climate was cooler and drier. And talking about the death toll, the Justinian plague killed about in between 25 and 60% of the European population. When you see over here in the map, it is believed that the Yersinia pestis would travel from Asia into Europe. About Yersinia. Yersinia is a zoonotic gram-negative Coccobacillus bacterium, and it is disseminated to human through rodents' fleas. The symptoms, well, like flu-like symptoms, buboes, lymphoadenopathies, and the organ affected are pretty much the lungs, with the major risk, which is the septicemic plague. Here is a picture of the flea. What the bacterium does, it causes a gastric emptying, making the flea more hunger, and trying to, in that case, the flea tries to search for more victims. And this is the way it spreads. Now let's have a look at the Black Death. I choose this picture. It's the macabre dance. During the time in the 14th century, people were so scared about this illness, also caused by Yersinia, that as you can see in this picture, this picture reflects the fact that death doesn't count. It attacks the rich, the poor, the nobles, and the children too. There is another picture that is not shown here that shows that the skeletons are very kind with the children. So it's very, very interesting if you have the chance to have a look at the dance macabre. It's fantastic. So the Black Death, I call it the perfect storm. As I said before, the agent was Yersinia pestis. And yet again, what happened is that it expanded to large cities. And it's important to mention that at the time, there were a lot of religious movements and, of course, an explosion in trade from Asia to Europe. The death toll, it was incredible. Over 200 million people died, which corresponds to about 1/3 of Europe's population. This is a very interesting story, the Black Death and the origins of quarantine. I don't know if you have read the story, but I found it amazing. So in October 3047, 12 Genoese galleys coming from Asia arrived at the Messina port in Sicily, if I well recall. Okay, thank you. By January 3048, 1 year later, it arrived to Venice. And the people over there, without having any knowledge about illnesses, found out that most of the people entering the port of Venice were already sick or diseased. So at the time, they said, well, we will send all entering ships to an island, and we will keep it for 40 days. That's the name, 40 giorni, quarantine. And this is very, very interesting, because if we go back to the history of any infectious diseases, pretty much in between the time in where a person is exposed to a viral or bacterial disease, there is an incubation period that can go from 3 days to up to 21 days in general. Then the patient will show symptoms and then progress or not. Let's remember that at the time, the Italians didn't have any antibiotics, and medicine was very rudimentary. So this is the history of the quarantine. As you can see in the picture, there is the death traveling into a boat. Okay. What is going on with the Black Death now? Well, for your information, unfortunately, in March 2024, the Ituri province in Congo reported about 205 cases of plague, including 7 deaths. In the United States, in March last year, the first human case of plague since 2021 and the first death since 2020 occurred. That was last year, and it was the United States. So another big spot right now for the plague is Madagascar, with a prolonged epidemic of over nearly 2,050 confirmed cases and 209 fatalities. So people is still dying from the plague nowadays. And what it is to me, the most scary thing about the plague is the antibiotic resistance, which is a future of concern, because a huge pandemic of plague in the context of antibiotic resistance could be really devastating for the humanity. Now, let's go to the exploration of America. And with the colonization of America, Europeans brought to the New World to a population that was naive of several infectious diseases. So it was estimated that at the time, the native population was about 25 million. Within 1 century, these new agents brought by the European devastated the Mayan and the Aztec empires, killing 80% of the native population. The most important pathogens were salmonella and influenza, but not only. So now, my colleague introduced me. I used to work a lot on bioterrorism. And this is a very, very interesting case. So in 83, there was a kind of a revolution, and an Indian delegation asked a British commander to surrender. Instead, the British commander offered the Indians a token of friendships, a poisoned gift. They give the Indians alcohol, blankets, and handkerchiefs out of a smallpox hospital. The outcome was that about a year later, 80% of that Indian tribe died. Yes. So now let's discuss about syphilis, or also called the Great Pretender. You all know that syphilis caused by Treponema palladium. Syphilis was already present in Asia, Europe, and the Americans even before its colonization. In the 15th and 17th centuries, syphilis was already present in royal courts, public bathhouses, and urban areas where prostitution increased. Armies also contributed to its rapid spread. So here again, we have another common point with the spread of pandemics, okay? armies, yet again. So the nice story, well, funny story about syphilis is that everything was about blaming the other. If you remember, during the COVID pandemic, we had the Italian COVID, the Peruvian COVID, the South African COVID, and even the Chinese COVID. So historically, in terms of infectious diseases, the humanity tries to always blame the others. This is an example. For example, the Italians call syphilis the French disease, the Naples disease, the Russian, the Polish disease, the Polish, the German, the Turks, the Christian disease, the Indians, the Hindu disease, and the Hindus, the Muslim disease. Okay, not only countries will blame each other, but even religions, okay? Now, let's discuss about cholera pandemics. This is the picture of Venetian girl before and after the syphilis. So an exacerbation of cholera pandemics was observed in the 19th century with the impressive death toll of about 40 million lives. Now, I'd like to discuss the pandemics in the industrial era. As you can see, a lot of flu that left us an outcome about 2 billion diseased people. So to illustrate these pandemics, let's discuss about the Spanish flu that lasted for about 2, even 3 years. The Spanish flu is caused by a highly pathogenic virus from avian origin, H5H1, which is a virus of concern, as we all know, because yet another H5H1 could be lethal. So the Spanish flu caused about 500 million victims. And it's called the Spanish flu, not because it started in Spain. It's because at the time, the only country that was very open informing was Spain. But what really happened is that during the First World War, American soldiers were contaminated in the north of France with bird migrations, and they brought the pandemic to America, and then it disseminated all over the world. So this is what happened with no treatment or not vaccines for the Spanish flu. The only treatment possible was capitin. So it was an aspirin, and it was prescribed 30 grams per day. So at that doses, we can imagine that capitin killed more people than even the flu. So now, okay, let's talk about hemorrhagic fevers. We started to see hemorrhagic fevers since the 60s and to nowadays. The Filoviridae family are mononegavirales with a negative single-stranded negative sense RNA viruses, requiring, of course, a biosafety 4 level containment. Since 1976, Ebola was present with several outbreaks. It's important to know that Ebola, in absence of treatment, it has a fatality rate of about 50%. There were about 26 outbreaks since 1976, and so we're expecting to have more in the coming years. Now, the 4-H Club, HIV and AIDS. We have evidence that HIV has been circulating at least in the 30s in Africa. And so I thought there are treatments, effective treatments nowadays. It's important to know that HIV is continuing to spread, and it has caused over 88 million infections and 42.3 deaths. Another very interesting history. It's about the 4-H Club to designate homosexual, heroin addicts, hemophiliacs, and Haitians. And that makes us to remember what happened before with syphilis and what happened with COVID, and pretty much every single pandemic or pathogen. So now let's discuss about coronavirus pandemics. I thought coronavirus were discovered in 1965. There was, if you well remember, in 2002, the first COVID pandemic. And then 10 years later, it originated, in Guangdong, China, and it disseminated to the Asian and Pacific region with clusters in Europe and North America. SARS-CoV-1 caused over 8,000 infections with 774 deaths with a fatality rate of 9.6. Then 10 years later, we confronted the MERS pandemic. The Middle East Respiratory Syndrome was first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012. And since it's important to mention that MERS continues to spread, and up to the 7th of April this year, 2,629 cases has been reported, including 955 deaths. Therefore, MERS is still circulating nowadays. The coronavirus pandemic, well, it's very, very present in your mind, so I'm not going to go deeper. But I wanted just to let you know that it caused up to April 2020 this year. So this is the latest information I found. So over 604 million cases were confirmed, including over 7 million deaths. So this is also the latest data that I found for you. The virus continues to circulate. As you can see over here in the world, it has been reported on the 18th of May, over 150 cases of COVID SARS-CoV-2. And it's important to know that only 33 countries in the world are reporting new infections. And it's also important important to know that COVID continues to be severe with hospitalizations and ICU infection. The virus continues to mutate with several variants of interest. Therefore, the importance of reporting. Now, the deaths during the last 28 days. This is the information that I found regarding deaths for SARS-CoV-2. Only 37 countries across the WHO regions reported new COVID deaths. Over 1,110 new deaths were reported. Only 5 countries from the America, Europe, and Southeast Asia showed an increase of over 10% in the number of deaths. As per April this year, 89% of reported deaths were aged over 65 years old, which is not surprising because we have observed the severity of SARS-CoV in patients over 65 years old, and particularly with comorbidities. So these are all the organs that are affected, but I will let my colleague Pio Conti to go deeper. Okay, now the new pandemics. It's believed that in the Arctic and Antarctic permafrost, even in glaciers, we have found thousands of unknown viruses and bacteria in lethargy. With climate change, it's pointed as a major actor in the rise of new pandemics. Yet again, the antibiotic resistance is believed to be a major public health threat for the response to bacterial pandemics in the present and in the future. Here are my take-home messages. Virus and bacteria have emerged from their natural habitats, mutating to cohabitate with humans. Through history, we can observe that the main drivers for the development of pandemic was travel. The human displacement due to wars, economic migration, climate change catastrophes, as well as tourism. With the human intrusion into natural habitats, it has contributed to the advent of new pandemics through zoonosis. With the rise of the industrial era, as you can see, pandemics have become more frequent and lethal. So just a last phrase to think about it. For the past 2,000 years, we're still blaming the others for the advent of new pandemics, isn't it? Thank you.